I think we're live. Hi folks, how are we all doing? Everybody well? Hope so. I know I haven't been able to do many live streams this week. I'm really sorry about that. It's been mental here, really busy, which is good, of course. But obviously it's so busy because I'm kind of still running on the skeleton team because of the whole lockdown situation that we're on here in the UK, which is slowly starting to ease up. So from next week, of course, I'll be having some of my staff returning responsibly, of course. So hopefully I can be back up and running on a more agreeable content schedule. So yeah, I'm sorry about that. Kendo rant is on its way. Finished filming it. It was a low-tech episode. I just filmed it here at my desk because my studio is a mess. So I can't quite get in there yet. It's just full of stuff that I can't deal with at the moment. So yeah, it was a bit of a low-tech episode this week. Sorry about that. However, what we're going to be talking about today, I thought it'd be kind of interesting to... I think it's all right for me to do this. I hope so. But talk about the essay that I wrote for my RENSHI application. I haven't been examined on my RENSHI application yet because it was supposed to be earlier this month at the Kyoto Taikai, but of course it was postponed. My application is in still. I don't know when it's going to be examined, but hopefully it'll be okay. And yeah, I thought it'd be kind of interesting to talk about. I'll read it out. I'll read through the essay that I wrote, the short essay that I wrote for the RENSHI exam. So let's see if I can just move my camera. There we go. Right. So basically, this was an essay that is part of the application process, the examination process for the RENSHI exam. I don't know if I'm successful yet. Like I say, the exam was postponed, of course. So hopefully later this year we'll see. But yeah, the essay that you have to write for it is entitled, well, you have to answer the question, write the mindset of Kendo instruction, Kendo Shido no Kokoro Gamae, established on March 14th, 2007 by the All Japan Kendo Federation, and describe your Kendo Shugyo, practice and process of training and polishing your mind and body in conformity with that. Okay. Steve, what do 7th dans do all day? Work jobs, I think, like the rest of us. So basically, there is a piece of text called the Kendo Shido no Kokoro Gamae. That means the mental approach or the mindset of Kendo instruction. And I have to write out what that is and basically describe my shugyo, which is my own path of doing Kendo, in relation or in conformity with that. So, should we have a read through of what I wrote? I wrote, the mindset of Kendo instruction is to place significance on the shinai for correct transmission and development of Kendo, to follow the protocols of Reiho, and to encourage respect for partners and nurture people with a dignified and humane character. Finally, instructors should apply the full measure of care to issues of safety and devote themselves to the development of character throughout their lives. This is the concept of lifelong Kendo. Okay, so that's the first paragraph. Through correct and vigorous training, we strive to make valid strikes that unify the body, the spirit, and the shinai. By challenging our deficiencies, our doubts, and our pride, we can learn to develop the human character by understanding the only true opponent in Kendo is the self. The desire to make valid strikes at all costs or to avoid them, I can't see around my phone, there we go. The desire to make valid strikes at all costs or to avoid them or to give up when we feel moments of weakness are all to be overcome. And although we hold the shinai physically towards our opponent, it is only by figuratively turning it towards the self that we are able to do so. This concept is of vital importance in my own shugyo, and represents a large part of my teaching philosophy. In Kendo, we engage in spirited combat, which in many cases results in victory or defeat. Even in regular practice sessions, our emotions can get the better of us. Reiho is an indispensable element of Kendo, and through adherence to it, it allows us to remain respectful and dignified towards our fellow practitioners and members of a wider society as a whole. Kendo begins and ends with Rei, and as well as encouraging students to adhere to the protocols of Reiho, I consider the instructor's role to be one of leading by way of example. The concept of Kendo is to discipline the human character through the application of the principles of the sword. By caring for the safety and health of students, instructors provide an environment where people from all walks of life, across generations, can learn together. Throughout my own shugyo, I continue to place importance on encouraging my students to allow Kendo to guide them throughout their daily lives, and for students to take the lessons they have learned through their training and apply them to the adversities they face, both within and without the dojo. And that's it. It's limited, all right? It's limited. You're only allowed to write so many words. I'll read through it again in a minute, and maybe we'll break it down a little bit. But basically, that's the essay that I wrote for my RENSHI application. Hopefully, that will be examined by the All Japan Kendo Federation within the next few months. It was supposed to be done in May at the Kyoto Taikai. And yeah, that was obviously postponed. So that's still out there. I don't know if this is enough or if it's the correct answer or not. We'll see, I guess, when they come back. But basically, if we go through it again, for those of you that are just joining now, the question for the essay is: write the mindset of Kendo instruction, Kendo Shido no Kokoro Gamae, established on March 14th, 2007 by the All Japan Kendo Federation, and describe your Kendo Shugyo in conformity with that. So, Shugyo is the practice and process of training and polishing your body and mind, is what the All Japan Kendo Federation define it as. So, the mindset of Kendo instruction is to place significant... I'm going to go through it again now. I'm going to read each paragraph, but I'm going to kind of break them down a little bit so we've got a bit of a... I can kind of discuss them a little bit more, because I had to sit down and write this essay. I think you're allowed 500 words or something. I wrote it out and I ended up going back and deleting loads because I was well over the word count. So the mindset of Kendo instruction is to place significance on the Shinai for correct transmission and development of Kendo, to follow the protocols of Reiho, to encourage respect for partners, and to nurture people with dignified and humane character. So, simple as, you know, I know it's not simple, but basically to be a good teacher, what this means is you have to care about the correct ideal of using the Shinai to communicate Kendo to lots of people, whilst teaching them the etiquette correctly, to respect each other, and to become and grow, become good people, and grow the human character. Finally, instructors should apply the full measure of care to issues of safety and devote themselves to the development of their character throughout their lives. This is the concept of lifelong Kendo. So obviously, it's the instructor has to care about safety, making sure that it's a safe environment for the students to thrive and to fully benefit from their practice of Kendo. Steve, so it's the AJ care for examining your RENSHI application rather than the BK? Yes, my RENSHI is being examined by the All Japan Kendo Federation. So then it says... Sorry, I lost myself there. Devote themselves to the development of character throughout their life. So you have to care as well as an instructor, not just about the improvement of your students, but also of yourself. You know, you have to be constantly trying to improve. And as I say later in the essay, you're trying to lead by example, right? And it's the concept of lifelong Kendo. That means that Kendo is an activity that we practice across generations, right? From being small children, you can be, you know, teenagers, young adults, right through to into old age. So it's for everybody, and it's something we take with us on our journey throughout life, right? Through correct and vigorous training, we strive to make valid strikes that unify the body, the spirit, and the shinai. Okay, so I've been very particular to use the word shinai as opposed to sword here, because I'm very much influenced by that passage from the guide for Kendo instruction that I read out on here a couple of weeks ago, where the shinai was akin to the concept of the shinai allowing us to achieve these things that a real sword can't. These ways of improving our character. We can't carry out the vigorous training to make valid strikes that we do in Kendo using a real sword. It must be a shinai. So to some extent, the shinai has superseded the value of the sword in its application to its use in Kendo. By challenging our deficiencies, our doubts, and our pride, we can learn to develop the human character by understanding that the only true opponent in Kendo is the self. I really think this is super important, and I really wanted to. It took me a while to figure out how to word this, how I wanted it to be worded, but you know, it goes on from that, and this is why I chose that word shinai as opposed to sword, because we are, by challenging ourselves through vigorous training, through correct vigorous training. It's not just tough because it's, you know, for the sake of being tough to make you tired. It's basically you know, it's got to be correct and tough, you know. Part of why it's tough is because you've got to do it correct, but challenging your deficiencies and being honest, owning up to them, you know, examining yourself, not being content with just hitting the burger of the opponent, actually challenging your own, like I said, deficiency, your doubts when you're in the jigeko with your sensei or another person. Oh, I don't feel confident. I have to strike, but I don't want to. Overcoming those doubts and really pulling out the courage, really, but at the same time overcoming your own pride as well. So, you know, okay, I'm facing against sensei, this is an 8th dan sensei or 7th dan sensei, something like that. I'm going to trick him to think I'm coming for men, and then bash, I'm going to hit his kote. Yes, I hit his kote. Yeah, I'm so good. Aren't I so strong? Yeah, I've got such good kote waza. And really you haven't gained from that interaction. Yeah, you've just managed to kind of get a cheap kote shot on you know, on someone that happens to be in real terms a lot better than you are. That's difficult. It's really difficult to be honest with yourself, to challenge yourself, to overcome those things. It really is, actually. And that's what Kendo is so, I think that's what's really hard about Kendo, but what is also the real value of it as well. And that's why I say that the only real opponent in Kendo is yourself. Yeah, we talk about that. I know it sounds lofty, and I know it sounds really like out there and sort of spiritual and all that. That like, oh, the only opponent is yourself and that sort of thing. But it really is true in Kendo. Really is. Like, it's only, you know, it doesn't matter how many, you know, matches you win, or okay, so you do, let's say you do jigeko with the All Japan champion, you hit his men. Well done, good job, well done. That's it. It's over then, right? That isn't the point. Yeah, that isn't the point of it. The point is to continually challenge your own deficiencies. Like I said, I'm trying not to repeat myself so much, but even those guys, and I really think that doesn't take away from competition Kendo. Yeah, it doesn't take away from Shiai, because that's exactly what Shiai is. Shiai is the hard test of that gives you instantaneous feedback as to what you're lacking. That's why it's called Shiai. Shiai means to test together. Yeah, it doesn't mean to compete. The shi from shiai is tamesu, which you might, if you do other like sword arts, they have tameshi giri, right? Tameshi giri, where they do the test cutting. That tameshi is the shi from shiai. It means to test. So yeah, that's you know, the desire to, this next sentence I say, the desire to make valid strikes at all costs, or to avoid them, or to give up when we feel moments of weakness, are all to be overcome. And although we hold the shinai physically towards our opponent, it's only by figuratively turning it towards the self that we're able to do so. So we've got to overcome those points where, oh, I want to hit, have to strike. That's one of the most dangerous times in Kendo, yeah, when when that suppressing that desire to strike whilst not succumbing to fear to strike, and not succumbing to that desire to not be hit. It's not even a balancing act. It's like spinning loads of plates, you know, those circus performers that have all the plates spinning on all the rods. That's like what you're doing, like trying not to get too eager to strike when it's not the right time, but also be ready to strike instantly when the time is there, and not being overcome by the desire to make a valid strike or to not receive a strike. And what also is really important there is giving up when you feel moments of weakness. That's really easy to do as well. Really easy to do. It's one of the hardest things I find about Kendo actually is, you know, really pushing yourself, not beyond your limits, but not giving up when the going gets really tough. And that can be in lots of different ways. It could be, it could be, I've done loads of Kakari now, I'm too tired to do anymore, right? I'm not doing anymore, right? And sitting out and doing that. I've done that before. Of course I have. Everybody does, I'm sure. But you have to overcome that, you know. Or it could be, oh, do I have to go to training tonight? Really? That thing I want to watch on TV is on, or I'd rather go and eat at McDonald's or something like that. You know, that as well. Not giving up there. Or it can even be like, and this is something that I found, I'll be honest, like straight up, like is it's easy to shy away from stuff like competing. I've been a competitor throughout a large part of my life in Kendo, and competed at really high levels, and it's hard not to now turn around and say, well, okay, I'm not going to compete anymore at all, because I don't really want, because if I compete, I know that I might lose, and that's a difficult situation to face. It's hard to deal with, and I don't want to have to deal with that. So it's easy for me to say, well, I won't bother competing at all, and I won't have to face that feeling. Especially now, I'm past my prime, and there's there's lots of young, good players that are, there. It's easy for me to say that, but maybe, I have to, it's not maybe, I have to overcome that. And, I recognize that, for example, Shiai or other aspects of Kendo are vital parts of it. Steve, sounds perfectly reasonable to me. Good. Eat at McDonald's, you're kidding, right? I couldn't eat at McDonald's if I wanted to, they're closed, but it was the first thing that came to my head, if I'm honest. I was going to say fish and chips, and then I remembered that not everybody watching is British. So, but yeah, or that same thing could be applied to grading, it's like, isn't that part of the lifelong learning of Kendo? Yeah, it is part of the lifelong learning of Kendo, Steve. It absolutely is. But it, and this is why I say you've got to overcome that, not just your deficiencies or doubts, but your pride as well. And that's something that I've personally struggled with in the last few years. It's like I don't get to compete as much as I used to. I don't even get to train as much as I used to. When I lived in Japan, I was training sometimes 7 or 8 times a week, and now I'm down to 3 or 4 times a week, and that's a lot for most people, but for me that's not very much, and especially as it's a different type of practice to what I used to do. You know, it's hard for me to kind of overcome that fear of entering Shiai again, because I know that the likelihood is that I'm past the stage where I used to win all the time, you know. But the point isn't to go and win. I know that, but I still have pride that I have to overcome, you know. So yeah, don't help that I put myself out on the internet all the time and stuff like that either. So, but yeah, let's move on. This concept is of vital importance in my shugyo and represents a large part of my teaching philosophy. So this is something that I actually talk about a lot, you know, both to my students in person. I talk about it on my YouTube. I'm talking about it now. So it is an important concept to me, and it's important to me that it's something that's passed on. In Kendo, and this next part of the piece is actually, I think, quite important. It says, in Kendo, we engage in spirited combat, which in many cases results in victory or defeat. In regular practice sessions, our emotions can get, our emotions can get the better of us. Neho is an indispensable element of Kendo, and through adherence to it, allows us to remain respectful and dignified towards our fellow practitioners and members of wider society as a whole. So, obviously in Shiai or even in Keiko, we engage in combat, yeah. It's not, I hesitate to use the word violent, but it is spirited combat, where victory and defeat is you know, part of it. And those things affect things like your pride and your feelings. So it's easy to slip into when you know, if you win, it's easy to slip into over celebration, or if you lose, to slip into the idea of acting a bit indignant about it. So, you know, the reason that we stick to the concept of Neho so stringently in Kendo is to avoid that, to train ourselves out of that. So, because it's not good to celebrate your defeat of another person right before their eyes, or to treat them indignantly because they beat you or something like that. And when I say victory or defeat, it doesn't necessarily mean in Shiai. It could just be in the Jigeko, someone just slams your hote or something like that. You're like, oh, I hate doing practice with this guy. He does odd Kendo that's weird, and that's why he hit me. That's really easy to slip into that. So, well, in what moment is valid to say I don't compete anymore? Is it about age or health? Domo arigatou gozaimasu. You don't need to go so polite, mate. I don't know. Maybe age or health is a point to sort of really step back from competition. But look, there's like, in Japan, now they've got a much bigger population of people in Japan doing Kendo, so they have more variety of Shiai. But people compete all the way along. People don't, even if it's only a couple of times a year, once or twice a year, even like senseis that are in their sort of 70s or 80s could still enter the sort of competition format, even if it's like the Kyoto Taikai. The Kyoto Taikai is like, that's my big ambition now. Is the Kyoto Taikai, and that's why I've been really hoping to get my RENSHI, which is what this essay is for that we're reading, so that I can enter that tournament. It's not a tournament, but that event, because it's not a tournament. You can't win. You can't be the champion of the Kyoto Taikai. It's not that kind of tournament. You just get a match. You just get one match, and that's it. So I don't think, you know, unless you're physically unable to compete, then I think it's a good thing to be competing throughout the stages of your Kendo. Even high-level 8th dan senseis, you know, there's an 8th dan championships, and there's the Tozai Taiko. There's lots of tournaments, even at local level, where 7th dan, 8th dan, or even, you know, even not high grade, but older people still participate. So there's even the Koreishi Taikai, which is the elderly person's Taikai, and there's people in the 90s that are in that, yeah, in that tournament. So it's part of the journey. But going back to that last paragraph, yeah, I mean, you know, sometimes people ask me about why do we stick to the day hall? Why do we stick to the etiquette so tightly? Like, do we have to really? And it's there so that we're able to control ourselves, yeah, whilst we're experiencing sometimes extremely positive or extremely negative emotions. You might feel really jubilant when you just won that critical match in the final of that massive tournament. You might feel that. And you might feel the opposite if you're on the opposite side. But you don't let that dictate your behaviour. You maintain some element of control over your actions and your behaviour to do that. And that helps us deal with stuff in everyday life as well, right? Hello, Andy, greetings from Bolivia. Hi. Thanks for joining. Next one, the next part says, the concept of Kendo is to discipline the human character through the application of the principles of the sword. We all know that, right? Keyword there is principles, by the way. Application of the principles of the sword. That's why Kendo's not sword fighting, yeah? By caring for the safety and health of students, instructors provide an environment where people from all walks of life and across generations can learn together. Yeah, so the instructor provides that environment where we can all benefit from the previously said elements. Throughout my shugyo, I continue to place importance on encouraging my students to allow Kendo to guide them through their daily life, and for students to take the lessons that they've learned through their training and apply them to the adversities they face both within and without the dojo. So I feel that my role as a teacher, and especially as in the last few years, I've been mainly teaching adults, but in the sort of last few years that I lived in Japan, I was mainly teaching kids. So it's really an important emphasis when you're teaching kids is that you can't, you know, these lessons that Kendo teach us are things that are applied to other aspects of life, you know, being polite and kind and thoughtful and not being overcome by your emotions, not acting irrationally, overcoming weaknesses, understanding where you are, you know, where your deficiencies lie, not being overtaken by your pride. Things like this are things that we take from Kendo, and we really need to put them into our everyday life. And that's what Kendo is for. That's what it's for. So as an instructor, especially, you have to not only provide an environment where it's safe and possible for everyone to do that, but, you know, encourage the students to actually take those lessons away. So yeah, that's it. That's my essay. That's what I wrote for my RENSHI exam. I wonder if I'll pass. I don't know. I was going to wait until I got the result before I sort of talked about what I wrote on this, like hoping that I'd passed. But I was supposed to be examined in May at the Kyoto Taikai. But unfortunately, obviously, because that whole thing was postponed because of the whole outbreak, it hasn't been examined. So we'll see. We'll see if this essay was indeed suitable for the RENSHI exam. We'll find out, I guess. Steve, to what extent do you find that your style of teaching adults and children differs? Well, I don't know, actually. I do know, but how do I describe it? Teaching adults is very different to teaching children for me. I don't really teach I don't really teach kids in the UK other than my own kids, really, because I'm not sure how to do it effectively yet. When I say effectively, I mean like I'm sure I could give them a shinai and get them to do some Kendo, but are they really learning Kendo? You know, is where I kind of, there's a different mindset. With adults I've only taught adults really here. Well, no, it's not true actually. I did it in Japan too. But adults are already independent thinking individuals. Not that kids aren't, but you can explain in more detail to adults, and they understand what you're saying better, if that makes sense. And the other difference, and here's the big thing, right? Actually, what's behind it? Because kids do as well. To be fair, kids understand what you're saying to them. It's not that they don't. The difference is the motivation behind the practice. I think most adults here in the West, they don't have the same motivation behind coming to Kendo practice as kids in Japan do. And it's not a case of one is better than the other, but there's a large number of kids in Japan that aren't there even on their own volition. They don't even, it's not that they don't, well, there's lots that don't even want to be there. They didn't elect to do it. Their parents made the decision to put them in Kendo as part of their education. So it's, whereas, for want of a better term, here in the West, most adults start Kendo as a means of extracurricular entertainment, for want of a better term. Now I'm not kind of downplaying anyone's effort here, but it's just most people don't come to Kendo. I didn't start Kendo and think, I'm going to start this as a way of becoming a better person, or to enrich my education or something like that. I just thought it looked fun. It wasn't until I sort of got absorbed in it a bit more that became a real part of me. But that doesn't happen with most people, actually. Most people want to do Kendo once or twice a week and just enjoy it, have fun, and do it kind of recreationally. They're not bothered about necessarily winning championships or reaching an 8th dan or something like that, which is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But it's a different motivation when you've got a kid that's come in and the parents said to you, you've got to educate my kid to be a better person through the medium of Kendall. Of course, there's a different approach to that. So when can we try to practice the other kind of kamae like Yondan or Nito? Is it about Kendo level or something else? You can do it when you are able to make Yuko Datotsu, that's valid strikes, with Kikentai no Ichi properly. Okay, so that usually means around 3rd dan level. If you can do that, if you can make strikes that are fully meeting the criteria of Yuko Datotsu consistently, with Kikentai no Ichi, then that's basically what you need to do to get 3rd dan. And if you can do that, then Jodan or Nito is it's probably a better chance to, not a chance, but you've got a better grounding to look at something like Jodan and Nito at that stage, in my opinion. Not everyone thinks that though. So, yeah. Okay, so that was it. That was it for today. It's Friday. Weekend already. Shame. I'd normally be saying like, oh, who's got training this weekend? But I guess most of us don't. You're doing Suburi instead though. Hopefully. I will. Got my Suburi bokken here. Do some Suburi. Do, what, about 20, 25, something like that. Anyway, right guys, I won't take up much more of your time. Thank you for joining me today. I've got Kendo Rant coming out very, very soon. It's uploading right now, so it'll probably be ready within the next probably within the next half hour or so, actually. Oh no, it's going to need another hour or so, I think. But we'll get it up there. Make sure you watch it. It's quite a good one. I think we had some good questions this time. Yeah, thanks for joining me. I'll do my best. Like I say, next week I've got some of my staff coming back, so I should have more time to put more content out. I'm so desperate to put the next episode of Zero to Shodan out. Even though it's like the next episode is about striking like striking a person in Borgu, which is something most of us can't do at the moment. I know that. But yeah, I still do want to put it out because it is a good one. I've got that I want to do. I know there's that video from the All Japan Kendo Federation that Nishimura-san was on doing the Suburi at home. I was going to do a translation of that. But basically, I kind of looked at it and it was like, well, it's really obvious what he's saying. But if people really do want a translation of that, just let me know, like put a comment in the group or something. Just let me know if you definitely want me to do that. But for me, it seemed really obvious what he was saying, but that's because I do understand what he's saying as well. So maybe it's not so obvious. Okay, so thanks for joining me, and I'll see you all probably next week. Have a great weekend.